I have been living in China for about 5 years. 1 year in Shanghai. Shanghai is full of some of the most amazing luxury cars in the world. Rolls-Royces, Lamborghinis, McLarens, everywhere on the streets. But no car has stopped me in my tracks more than this one. Today, I have the privilege of driving one of the only 1995 Pontiac Trans Ams, probably one of the only Pontiacs in all of China, and I am loving it. Pontiac is a brand that is instantly familiar to Americans, even if it hasn't been around for nearly 20 years. You see, Pontiac was the excitement division at General Motors and was responsible for some of the most interesting mainstream American cars of the 20th century. The very first muscle car was the Pontiac Tempest GTO, and Pontiac went on to create one of America's only mid-engine sports cars, the Fiero. While that didn't save them from being shut down after the 2008 financial crisis, I think it does make them worth remembering. When it comes to the exterior styling, the thing that makes this car so special, even in a city full of luxury cars and supercars, is the fact that Pontiac never made it to China in any meaningful numbers. In fact, most American cars before the early 2000s never made it to China at all. That means the 90s styling elements with which we are so familiar look positively alien here in China. Add to that the fact that the Firebird was already the most radically designed muscle car of its era, and you have a recipe for turning heads wherever you go. If you've ridden in any General Motors car from this era, this interior will feel instantly familiar. From the interior materials, to the design of the gauges, to the sound of the turn signal click, click, clicking, it's all like stepping back to 1995. Makes me want to drop the top, crank up some Nirvana, and ride down the boulevard. Now, the exterior styling of this car does write some checks that the interior cannot cash. This is a 90s era General Motors product, so we're talking about acres upon acres of dark gray plastic, ranging from pretty cheap to incredibly cheap. It's also an automatic, a 4-speed in this case, which isn't ideal, but it's convertible, so it's more for cruising anyways.
I've been around the world, seen a lot of things as the earth has twirled, been amazed and excited, collecting the clues when I was running, trying to fill my own shoes.
Like the interior and the powertrain, the handling of the Firebird isn't particularly great. It's a cruiser, not a track weapon. At this point, you may be asking yourself, if this thing is as slow, soft, and cheap inside as this guy says it is, why on earth does he love it so much? I'm going to start with what I don't like, and everything has to do with the fact that this is a 1990s General Motors product. Like I said, the interior is nothing to write home about, and the driving experience is 1990s General Motors. The amount of play in the steering is somewhere between massive and unbearable. You can turn the wheel damn near halfway around before it even affects which direction you're going. However, that's not really what this car is about. One important thing I want to mention is that this is an original owner car. That means that the owner imported this car into China in 1995. I want you to imagine Shanghai in 1995 was almost entirely bicycles. Apart from bicycles, there was a scattered collection of Volkswagen Santanas, Audi 100s, and maybe some whatever you could import type of cars. So getting on the road in this thing must have been like driving a spaceship down a dirt road. Phenomenal. I just can't believe it. And the fact that he has kept this car for 25 years, it's not easy to keep an older car on the road in China, genuinely. I don't even know what he's had to do, but I genuinely respect that. And for the record, this is a car that gets driven regularly. It's already got 121,000 miles. It's genuinely impressive. The performance, it's the 3.8 liter V6. I should mention that the back has a 5.7 liter V8 badge, but that's a bit of a lie. The owners also installed a aftermarket exhaust. He used to have an Akrapovic exhaust, but he said it was way too loud. This new one is kind of a no-name Chinese brand, and it's okay. It's not too bad. It's kind of hard to make the the General Motors 3.8 liter sound very good, but it is a strong engine. I know people that have gotten over 1,000 horsepower out of these things with a couple of turbos, so, you know, if he was brave enough, he might could try that. The first reason is the story of this car. I love that the owner has kept it for nearly 25 years, and he is still crazy about it. The enthusiasm with which he talks about it is contagious. It's not a V8, it's not a manual, but it's his car, and he absolutely loves it. I get a huge kick out of picturing him as an 18-year-old driving this car around a Shanghai that was overrun with bikes. The way he must have cut through traffic, I just wish I could have seen it with my own eyes. The second reason is more complicated. I've loved spending the last 5 years living in China, but one can't help but miss home every once in a while. Some people cope with homesickness by eating food that reminds them of home or talking to their family over the phone. Me? I'm a car guy, so every time I see a quintessentially American car like this on the road, it fills me with warm feelings of home. Driving this car is like stepping into a time machine and going back to my childhood in the 90s, a time when I thought this car was the coolest thing on earth. So, V8 or not, this car still earns my respect.